Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, and welcome everybody. We are back for some Bryan Kohberger coverage here. Let me make this full screen. There we go. Excellent. All right, so many of you guys may be aware we have some movement here. Last night we were talking about, the potentiality of some of these court filings coming up today. We saw them on the case summary, and now we have some of these states' motions in limine that have become available to us to actually take a look at. So first, though, we are going to take a look at the case summary itself here. Okay. Scroll way on down here. Okay, so first of all, so we have so these are the ones that have posted so today that we can read, right? So we have 4. We have the motion in limine regarding alternative perpetrator evidence, neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence, alibi, and admissibility of demonstrative exhibits. These motions also here with the page limit also have posted. So what we can expect, though, in the near future, potentially tomorrow, a motion in limine regarding the investigative genetic IgG. Let's just go with that. Motion in limine regarding immediate family members in the courtroom. Interesting. Motion in limine regarding AT&T timing advance records. I know Twiz especially will be excited about that. Motion to redact well, there we go. So these are going to be sealed. Well, okay, let me just say, we don't know yet. Let's hold that thought, because as we know, Judge Hippler has been more not just apt to seal things. So potentially, and it also says seal or redact or seal. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself with that. We might still get to see something, right? Then we have a motion eliminate number 1, re-inflammatory evidence. I wonder what that will be. Inflammatory evidence. I've not heard of that before in a court filing. I've never seen that. Shout out to Twiz. Shout out to Amethyst. Amethyst, do you have a command yet? I did start on time. And Franks was here earlier, and probably when I first posted this live stream, and said, "Hey, everyone, I'll probably miss this one. 3-year-old busy kid Nick is coming. Someone call the hour." Okay, gotcha. Well, hopefully we'll see you on the replay crew. Love you. Shout out to Franks as well. So would you like a command, Amethyst? Also, I will say a couple things. We do have memberships available now for anyone who hasn't heard that. Additionally, didn't want to forget to say this. For anyone who's been following the Zachary Hughes case, huge shout out to DSN. If you go to the Discord and go to the Zachary Hughes thread, DSN has posted a link there that will take you to a Google Drive that has all of the court filings, and they're organized by person. So there's like Brad Post, there's Mello, and you can, dude, it's got all the civil stuff. It's awesome. It's a huge resource. Shout out to Denise and as well. So yeah, hopefully everybody heard that part. So for Zachary Hughes court filings, again, can't thank DSN enough for providing that, for finding that Google Drive link that has all of those, all of the court filings organized by person and by date. And you can find them all there. I have them all on my computer, but they're not organized in such a fashion. I don't even know how one makes that happen, but that is amazing. Welcome back, Jack, and that also rhymes. So anyone that wants to take a look at any of those, definitely check out that link. And also please give a huge thanks to DSN for finding those for us. Okay, also other announcements. Donna Adelson's hearing tomorrow. That is her bond hearing, trying to get bond. That's going to be funny. So we'll cover that at some point. I don't know how long that'll be, but we will cover that as well, of course. All you have to do, Amethyst, is just tell me what you want for your command, and I'll make it probably Amethyst just because it's shorter than, I usually do like an abbreviation or just the person's first name. So if you just let me know what you want your command to be, and I will set it up, or Nightbot will set it up for you. So yeah, Denise, question for you though. Have you ever heard of this? What is this inflammatory evidence? Like, I've never seen that before. As like someone might call something inflammatory, but in terms of like an actual like legal basis for an motion in limine, I mean, obviously it's going to be evidence that is inflammatory, right? Like harmful, prejudicial, maybe, but I've just never seen, like, it's just so vague, right? Like, what do you think that's about? If you have any thoughts? I mean, it makes me wonder, is that like with DM statements, maybe? I don't know. The next motion in limine, vague and undisclosed expert testimony. Motion in limine, then we have the use of the term murder. What? Hold on. I wonder if these are from the defense. Hold on. Because okay, so so far what it's done is it said states in parentheses when it's the state, right? So interesting. So does this mean that this motion in limine is actually being filed from the defense? Because remember, we were looking at these deadlines last night, and it looked like the defense deadlines were also the same day, right? And so I wonder if this is actually from the defense. Hold on, let me just make sure, because sometimes they're not always consistent with how they label these things. Okay, so let's just review. So like with these previous motion in limines, right? It's a states motion in limine, states motion in limine, states motion, right? And then here it's in parentheses states. So does this, and then again here with the IGG in parentheses states, and then here in parentheses states. So this means to me that maybe these are from the defense, which would be different. So now we have to rethink about this. So this motion in limine here regarding the AT&T timing advance records, that would be from the defense. Motion to redact or seal newly filed records, ostensibly from the defense, because again, it doesn't say states. Inflammatory evidence, that would be the defense filing these, I suppose. What made me think of it is here, the use of the term murder, because that would definitely be a defense motion in limine, right? And again, here again, using the term psychopath or sociopath, definitely the defense. Riley Nolan in reference to touch and contact DNA. These are defense. These are defense. Witness identification by bushy eyebrows. Yep. So that would mean, Twiz, did you think about this? Twiz, that would mean that this motion in limine with the AT&T timing advance would be the defense. So Twiz is saying the non-numbers are state. Yeah, the ones that so again, it's pretty clear the ones that are states say state. So the numbers, the numbers are all defense, but also these are defense. The AT&T timing advance and the motion to seal motions in limine and exhibits to motions in limine are defense. Oh, cool. Yeah. Do you guys see what I mean though? I mean, these numbered ones are all defense, but it's not just the numbered ones. It's not like that's a thing of like, if it's numbered, it's defense. That's not, it's just, that's how they are labeling these specific motions in limine. Yeah, all that. Yeah. So it does look like the timing advance records is the defense. Timing advance, AT&T timing advance records. And we know there can be problems with the accuracy, right? Depending on how that's done. So that makes sense. You're going to disagree about what? This is the Because remember, like if the issues that can happen with the accuracy of doing this, right? We heard a lot about that from Matt Wild, both in Zach Hughes' trial and in Murdoch, that, you know, they have to, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken to get that accurate. And, you know, what are the odds that that was done in this case? Well, you know, we know how things have gone so far, right? And we know that there's been some mistakes here and there as it pertains to the cast. So, if indeed there's like issues there, they would want that to not come in, right? But some of the states' motions in limine are available, and that's what we are going to take a look at. So, okay, so we'll just go in order. We'll start with this one. So this, okay, so states motion eliminate re-admissibility of demonstrative exhibits in memorandum in support. Now, I don't think we saw the memorandum, although we oftentimes don't see those. Okay, so moves the court for pretrial order regarding the admissibility of demonstrative exhibits. Specifically, the state will seek to introduce a three-dimensional model of the 1122 King Road residence for demonstrative purposes to aid the witnesses in their testimony. You know, I really loved not thinking about the fact that the house was torn down, and now I'm remembering that. Fuck. That I remember the days recently when I was not thinking about that because it pisses me off. And anywho, okay. Right. Of course. Okay. So Denise is saying the inflammatory is the defense. Right. Things like he was, of course, that all makes sense. So did you have any other thoughts though, Denise, on how, where'd it go? On how, again, like this AT timing advance, it doesn't say states, it doesn't say defense. However, on these that are clearly defense, they don't say defense. And on the states, they say states. So it's interesting, right? Yeah, totally. I mean, 100%. That, I mean, right. So, and now that I understood that it was the defense, it makes more sense. The reason it was weird before was because I thought it was still the state, right? And it was, because again, it doesn't specify. And it's like, if it was the state with inflammatory evidence, I'm like, what? That's why I was like, is this with DM or what? That's why I was confused. So now it makes sense when it's the defense. That rhymes. Yeah, like I was saying before, like, you know how there could be issues with those, like the accuracy. Like, in other words, like the state would try to show this to the jury and be like, yeah, look, like da da da, right? But we know that there can be issues there with the accuracy. So of course that's fodder for cross-examination, but you'd rather it not come in, right? In the first place. Right. So Twiz is saying from what Cy said on the stand, how the state used the CDR to make the map. I don't know why the defense wouldn't want the timing when that's exactly why Cy wanted to show it was exculpatory. Right. And so that would be one of those things where you would rather it not commit. Okay. You would rather not have to try to disprove something, as in the state tries to prove one thing and then you have to disprove it and show the other. You would rather the thing that the state was going to show just not come in at all, right? Rather than having to try to then, you know, go the other route, right? Like it would be like if you're the defense, it'd be better for it to not come in the first place than for it to come in and then try to prove that it's wrong. Does that make sense? So that would be why I would think. Because remember, like we were talking about, like they don't want burden shifting, right? It would be better to not have the burden of having to disprove the state. You know what I mean? Hi, Stevie B. Glad you're here. I know I saw your comment, and so I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're in the chat. Awesome, happy to see you. So does that make sense? Right. Okay. Denise is saying yes because they're not reliable. Yes, correct. Yep. And that's the thing, because like we've heard a lot of testimony again from anyone who's just getting your Matt Wild from both Murdoch and Zachary Hughes. He's awesome. He explains very well how mistakes can happen and how careful you have to be when you're doing these timing advance. And Stevie does not have a command yet. I was just going to say, let us know if you want a command, Stevie. At least I don't think so. I don't think you have a command yet. You have to let me know what you want. Otherwise, we don't have one set up. So same with Amethyst. So yes, you sent me the message and I said, okay, hang on. Was this on a YouTube video? I remember this now. I vaguely remember this. Okay. Maybe I did set it up. Hold on. Hold on. Let's see. If it's, let me see. I do have a vague recollection of that. You guys have to remember that I'm oftentimes doing 50 million things at once, especially if I've just like finished a live stream. I'm usually trying to work on timestamps and get stuff. Oh no, I see it. You do have it. Stevie, it's there. It's there. Just kidding. It's set up. I did set it up. So it should. Nightbot might just be napping. He did this last night. It's Stevie B. I have it set up. Yes, it's there. Yay. There it is. Yay. Okay. Denise says, sorry, guys. I've been working until about 15 minutes ago and then feeding my face. I haven't really read anything except Heather did send me a list. Okay, gotcha. It's all good. That's what we're here for. We're getting all caught up. Oh, was that what Amethyst wanted as their command? I didn't know if that was an affirmative to that. Let me see here. Gotcha, Amethyst. We'll get that set up. Let me do that right now. Or tell Nightbot. Also, while I'm getting this set up again, I'm not trying to be like redundant, but for anyone who hasn't heard, we do also have memberships as well now, available to those who want to. We've got 2 levels. So let me get this set up for her. With the emojis. Excellent. Love it. Got to get the right colored hearts here. Okay. Here we go. All right. Now we have it. Now we've got that one as well. Excellent. Oh, I just changed. Do you want me to change it with spirit to spirits? Here's what I got. I can change it though. Oh, nice. I love Indian food. So would you like spirits? Would you want me to change it? Yes, you got it, guys. Maybe spirits sounds a little bit nicer. But you let me know. Yeah, so I don't know. I do think that there's a good chance that this motion in limine with the timing advance could be from the defense. Again, because you'd rather not have to try to show where there's errors or show why it's wrong or disprove it or, use it to even prove something exculpatory. It'd be better if it just didn't even come in. And then, you know what I mean? Those other options are available if it does come in. So yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll do spirits. We'll do spirits for Amethyst. Especially since we're usually covering murder trials. Might be better. Okay. Where's Heather, by the way? Heather! Did I spell it? Hold on. Did I spell it correctly? World. some of you guys may have heard about my walk phase. That was a whole thing. Even though it's not Indian food, it's still ethnic, other cultures. Like, anywho, let's see if did I spell it correctly? So, yeah. So anyway, but I did, oh yeah. And by the way, so when you have a walk, it's like having a child. Oh, good. The new one worked. Yeah. So like you have to like season the walk and like care for the walk. And it's a lot of work, but oh my God, the food was amazing. Oh, welcome. We have a new subscriber. Awesome. Welcome, Shannon. I will let you know for anyone who's new, we do have, we love the Squirrel Cruise. Squirrel Cruise is the absolute freaking best. And we have custom commands for those who want one, who are here on the regs. And you can see a lot of these already in the chat. But if you would like one, just let me know. Feel free to think about it. Oh, right. W-A-L-K. No, W-O-K. Yes. Walk. And I did like a curry version with like the stir fry. So I made like a homemade, it was like a yellow curry peanut sauce. Oh my God, it was so good. Anyway, so welcome to anyone who's new. And okay, so yes, so now we'll go back to this state's motion in limine here. It'll be interesting. Maybe that document will come out tomorrow and we'll see for sure what's going on with this timing advance. So, and we will obviously cover it as per usual. So yes, so the state, so we're at just this first motion in limine of the states here that's come out. So the state is seeking to introduce a 3-dimensional model of the House, basically, for demonstrative purposes. Now, what does this mean? This means it's not going to go back with the jury. It's going to be a demonstrative aid, right, for the witnesses in their testimony. Okay. The state further submits the following memorandum in support of its request. Standard of admissibility. Trial courts are endowed. This is interesting, though, because in other words, this is almost like them trying to say that, nothing should try to stop this from coming in. It's interesting. Like, in other words, they're not trying to, this is not a motion in limine to prevent something from coming in, right? This is the opposite. So the state will seek to introduce this 3-dimensional model, right, of the House, like I said. So, okay, so standard of admissibility. Trial courts are endowed with discretion over the use of demonstrative exhibits during trial. The Idaho Court of Appeals held an exhibit is properly admissible for demonstrative purposes when the exhibit supplements the testimony of witnesses or assists the jury in obtaining a better understanding of the facts in issue. The Idaho Supreme Court held it's established that the use of exhibits by a testifying witness in order to supplement or illustrate events is proper insofar as the differences between the events depicted and the events observed are explained by the witness and the exhibit is not deceptive. Interesting. The appropriate test is Idaho Rule of Evidence 403, the balancing test we talk about all the time, like every day, all day, every day, right? Probative value against danger of unfair prejudice, distraction, confusion of the issues, and waste of time. We talked about this. This even came up with the Zach Hughes case. A diagram offered for demonstrative purposes need only be relevant to illustrate a witness's testimony. It does not need to be precisely accurate. Okay, right. Right. Does not need to be precisely accurate. Well, had the House been around still, so it looks like some of you guys know each other. Awesome. I've not seen anything yet about a scan. It just says a 3-dimensional model. So I would imagine the model would have been made based on the scan, right? But they haven't said scan yet. Right. So that's what's funny. So I guess I had never seen these. Well, I had never read, I guess I hadn't read anywhere they are offering a motion in limine as to what they can admit. Right. I always had seen it where it was like what they want to have, again, to use Denise's verbiage here to have the judge be able to nix. For anyone who's new, also Denise is a defense attorney in California. Yeah, I would all seen it as not allow versus do allow, right? It's interesting. So okay, a diagram offered for demonstrative purposes need only be relevant to illustrated witnesses' testimony. Oh, right, we already read that. Does not need to be precisely accurate. More recently, the Idaho Supreme Court has agreed in State v. Roman Lopez, finding the use of demonstrative exhibits at trial appropriate to aid the understanding of testimony that may otherwise be difficult to comprehend through words or gestures alone or along. You know, actually, I fixed it. That's a typo. That's got to be a typo. It must have. I did that thing where I automatically corrected it. They said along. It's got to. I'm sure they meant alone. Again, to this end, it's like, well, the house would have been even better, right? Then there would be no discrepancy. Anywho, so McCormick explains that demonstrative or illustrative aids may be created outside of court or by the witness on the stand and are generally admissible subject to an unfair prejudice objection under the theory that they illustrate and explain live testimony or what the witness is trying to describe, right? In other words, when the drawing is admitted for demonstrative or illustrative purposes, the witness testimony is the evidence and the map or diagram is merely an aid to its understanding, obviously. Thus, the drawing is not hearsay because it is not an out-of-court statement admitted to establish a particular fact, right? Because hearsay, right? Out-of-court statement that is offered to prove the fact of the matter asserted. So if it's not offered for the fact, to establish a particular fact that's being asserted, then it is not hearsay by definition. Of course, there's always many exceptions to hearsay, but anywho. Yeah, again, my thought, okay, this 3D model would have had to have been made based on the computer models, right? Like that's why they would have done the scans. Because if you take a scan of a house and you don't make a model out of it, what do you have? Like laser beams? I don't even know. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't. Right. And again, Denise, you read my mind. I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if you noticed when I paused before I kept reading, I was literally thinking that. And then I was like, and then I didn't say it. But yeah, as far as the call detail records, I thought the same thing. But again, everything that's been from the state. Okay, I see what you're saying. Right. That it could be. I don't know though. Like I was saying before, you have to be careful with the burden shifting. You know what I mean? That's why I didn't say anything because in my mind I'm like, well, no, I kind of ran through it really quickly. Quick pause in my head of like, it would still be better for it not to come in, right? Because they're not running an affirmative alibi defense. It'd be different if they were. It'd be different if they were. So the ones that are numbered they all start with re. It's not just a number, it's re. So it's like capital R, capital E, and then whatever the subject is. And for the timing advanced one, we'll just pull it back up. Speaking of a demonstrative aid, right? Let's make sure you guys can see what I'm talking about. So, oh, it does say re. Never mind, it does say re. But this one's number 1, though. See what I mean? It does say re. Interesting. I don't know, man. I don't know. We will need to wait. This why did they do it this way? Like, yeah, it says re, but it's not numbered. Like, what the fuck? I can't fathom that this would be the state, right? I mean, what the fuck? This is so weird. Right. Yes, yes. Oh, thank you. Of course. Right. I know that. And I know that. I guess because I guess because it always seems like regarding, right? Because you said here, right? It's just regarding. That's how my brain always interprets it. Like if Ray is used in a different Latin phrase, I always think of it as Ray, but every time I see this, I think of it as re because of regarding. Anyway. And they aren't sealing it. Now here we have this. We don't know what this is about. Like this word gets crazy. Motion to seal motions and eliminate in exhibits, or to redact or seal, right? So we don't know yet what that's for. Jesus. So right. So this would be like if that is from the state. Man. And it's funny too, right? Because now we know it could be that they're saying we want this to come in or we want it to not come in. So you've got that, and then you've got we don't know who did this. Because it is weird. I agree with you guys. You're right. Like it does say Ray. I still think of it as Ree when it's in this setting. But it's not numbered, but again, it doesn't say states. So this is just very odd. But also I wanted to point out, so Shannon Sterling here is saying they know the specs of the model are off. So I think I actually already answered that question. And then right, a model excludes furniture lighting. Right. That's true. Right? You guys, it's going to be so exciting. I hope that comes out tomorrow. I hope it does. Okay, so now we'll go back. We'll go back. It's a mystery. You know what I mean? This is like, whoa. It'll be really exciting to see what happens with that. Okay, so yes, so not hearsay. Okay, argument. So in this case, the state anticipates introducing a three-dimensional model of the 1122 King Road residence. Okay, here we go. This model will consist of 3 levels, which can be removed by level to show the interior layout of the residence. The interior layout will depict wall and door placements, i.e. no furniture, human depictions, etc. The model will be placed on a rolling table for portability within the courtroom. Is it going to look like a dollhouse? i.e. can be placed out of the way when not in use. This model is being constructed by the FBI based on depictions, documentation, measurements. So based on the scan. There it is. Based on the scan, pictures, documentation. Taken to the scene prior to the demolition. The primary purpose of this model is to aid the jury in having a better understanding of the layout of the residence, which is unconventional, and to illustrate where certain events occurred within the residence. The model will aid certain witnesses, for example, law enforcement, surviving roommates, individuals surrounding the crime scene, and crime scene analysts, in demonstrating the location of the victims, location of witnesses, location of items of evidence, items related to their testimony, path of travel. The state anticipates laying the proper foundation to establish the model accurately reflects the layout of the residence. The model passes the Idaho rules of evidence 403 balancing test as the value in facilitating the jury in visually understanding where facts in issue occurred at the crime scene far outweighs any danger of unfair prejudice, distraction, confusion of the issues, or waste of time. This model will merely aid witnesses' testimony and is not being introduced to establish a certain fact and issue and therefore is not hearsay. Again, right there, not being offered the truth of the matter asserted. Like I said, it doesn't say what it will seal. It doesn't specify though. It doesn't specify. It just says, I mean, I hope it's not sealed. It doesn't specify though. It just says motion to seal, motions in limine, and exhibits to motions in limine. We don't know what that's for. I will say this much though. So who here did not watch the full Murdaugh trial? Show of hands if you feel so inclined. Oh, we're actually, well, as you guys are showing your hands, if you feel so inclined, I'll read the conclusion. The state requests the court issue an order allowing the state to use a three-dimensional model of the residence. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. Denise is raising a hand. Squirrel paw. Squirrel paw. That's good enough for me to say what I was going to say then. If at least one person. No squirrel left behind, I will say. So in the Murdaugh trial, right, my favorite trial case of all time, we saw so many pictures of that feed room, right? The feed room was a huge thing, right? The murders happened at the kennels. Kennels were far away from the house. Paul was standing in the feed room. We saw so many photos. We heard so much testimony about that feed room. And even in the pictures, it looks narrow and small. That doorway matters. It was really, really, really important to figure out the logistics of how everything happened and the angle of the shot and all this stuff. It was completely an issue for this case, right? Because the defense was trying to say that it was 5'2" ninja assassins that were hiding in the ceiling and had green lasers. I'm paraphrasing, but not really. If you watch the trial, you would see that was what they presented. So, like the height of the shooter and whatnot, right? So, and anyone who has seen it will know that the impact it had on the jury when they did the jury view, because despite so much had come in about this feed room, everybody had said, right, and not just the jury, but even the people who were there reporting and whatnot said, you couldn't tell how small that feed room was until you were there. There was nothing like seeing it in person. Same with, they did a jury view of the whole house and everything, but the feed room was really especially important in terms of the case. But all of it, they said, it wasn't, there was nothing like being there in person. So I just wanted to mention that. As far as jury views go. So motion is sealed, the motions eliminated. I think they asked for all of them to be sealed in one sweeping motion. Okay. Could be. Right. It is plural. You're right. But it could also be more than one. We just don't know. But yes, thank you for noting the plurality there. Okay. Here's how you do emojis on your laptop, Denise. You ready for this? Okay. I'm going to teach you. For your emojis on the laptop, do you have a Windows laptop? I guess it just has to be a Windows laptop. Or yeah. Do you have a Windows button? The one that looks like the 4 squares? Okay. Press the Windows button with the 4 squares, but you have to press it at the same time as the period button. Okay. So press the period, the Windows button and the period button at the same time. That's how I do it on my computer. And then it pulls up the emojis in a way that makes sense. Oh, if you're on a Mac, I don't know. So Jack is asking if the FBI can verify a timeline of VPN access and a link to Gmail address used that is EDAT data to discuss, that may be useful to defense or benefit. Absolutely. It could be beneficial to the defense or the state. I don't know. We don't know yet about VPN. Now, it's interesting because that did come up in the Zachary Hughes trial. There's really not been, it's funny, there's not been that many cases where VPNs have come up, but I think we're going to see it more and more. The other thing of note too, for anyone who didn't see it, by the way, guys, and is that one thing that was earth-shattering to me in the Zachary Hughes case, that trial, which just happened, we covered it, was that you guys know how, like, with WhatsApp messages and stuff, usually it's like they just can't get it in and they can't, and that's it. That's the first time I've ever seen them try to actually bring that in because it was really important. And we got to actually see what happens when you receive that due to the end-to-end encryption. And what it is like they're scrambled, right? But the words are scrambled, not the letters. So it becomes like a word game, kind of like Pig Latin, right? In a way, we were making jokes about it, where the words are scrambled, but you can unscramble them and figure out the messages. It was really fascinating. Just a side note there. Oh, that's funny. Do you have a Mac, Twiz? Let me just see here. Okay, Denise, are you ready? On a Mac, press and hold the Control and Command and Spacebar keys simultaneously. Because I don't think anyone can be expected to know the specific typing things you type in for a emoji. This is better. So this would actually allow you to pull up all the emojis. So I'll say it again. So you press and hold Control plus Command plus Spacebar. Does that help? Oh, interesting. Okay. Shannon, 2 beers. Excellent. Cheers. Okay, now as far as tagging, right. Okay. On cell phones, I think this is true for all cell phones. If you're talking about like tagging people in YouTube chat, it doesn't do it. It only does it on computer. That is for a fact. It will still tag them, but you won't tag them. It won't make it easy for you. Like you have to type their name exactly versus on a computer where it like pops up and like suggests it, and then you can click on it. On a phone, any phone, pick a phone, any phone, it won't do it. I don't know why. That's a weird one. Okay, so we're on to the next one here. So we've got the state's motion in limine, Ray alibi. So now I'm saying it's so funny. I literally didn't even think about that because we usually see it in different context. Like in Ray, like if I saw in Ray, I would be like, oh, in Ray, right? But whenever I see this, I think regarding. Anyway. So, all right. Comes now. Everybody's coming a whole lot in these cases, right? That's what she said. All right. By way of background, okay. I think this will be good to review these, and I wanted to do this anyway. So let's pull up May 23rd, 2023, and July 23rd. Okay, hang on. 2023. Oh, that's 2024. Wrong year. I forgot it was so early on that this whole thing was happening with the alibi. Okay, what am I looking for specifically here? So request. Okay. Why is it? Okay, here we go. It doesn't say alibi in the title. I hate it when they do that shit. It does on the actual document, but it wasn't. Okay, got that one. And now I'm just going to pull up the other one here. So July 22nd, 2023. And that would be and then there's an August. Okay. And then okay, so here's the thing. So they're referencing these documents. So let's take a look at these and just review for ourselves what was going on with this for anyone who was, because this was a long ass time ago. Like I said, I didn't even realize it was that long ago. Okay, so here's the first one. So this is from, where was it? May of 2023. So, yeah, May 23rd, 2023. Okay. So state's request for discovery, disclosure, alibi demand. Okay. So, so they're asking for, right? All books, papers, documents, photographs, that are in possession, custody, or control of the defendant, in which the defendant intends to introduce in evidence of trial. All results or reports of physical or mental examinations, intend to introduce a trial. A list of all names and addresses he intends to call at trial. All witness or all written summaries or reports of any testimony they intend to introduce pursuant to all those rules. So there's nothing really specific about getting into the alibi there, but that's just there from a motion to compel. And then there is the next one, which is notice of defendant's response to state's alibi demand. So this is from July 24th, 2023. Okay. On a Samsung phone. You guys are don't practice it with me though, because here's the thing. If you're practicing your tagging on your phones, don't do it with me because it's going to look differently for me because I'm on StreamYard. It's not going to show up the same way that you guys are that we were talking about, like the way it would if you're in the chat. You know what I mean? Like, Okay, so notice of defendant's response to state's alibi demand. Like, so in other words, if you want to practice your tagging and see what happens, try it for other people that are not me, because I'm on stream. Okay. All right, so he preserves his constitutional right to silence as well as to testify on his own behalf. Mr. Kohberger stands firm on his constitutional right as well as the statutory recognition of that right. Noteworthy is that an alibi indicates a line of proof by which the defendant attempts to show that he could not have committed the crime which he is accused because he was elsewhere at the time. A defendant's denial of the charges against him does not constitute an alibi, but as soon as he offers evidence that he was at some place other than the crime of which he is charged was committed, he is raising the alibi defense. Now, we've talked about this. We mentioned this last night, right? The affirmative alibi defense. And again, going back to Alex Murdaugh, they ran what I was calling like a pseudo alibi defense. Why? Because initially they wanted to run an affirmative alibi defense, which is to say they're going to actually take on the burden of proving he was somewhere else at the time. Okay. Think along the lines of like Karen Reed and Richard Allen, if they'd been allowed to actually put on their affirmative defenses, where you actually take on a burden of proving something. Or another example would be like in a self-defense case, right? Where now you've taken on a burden of proving something to the jury, right? That it was just justifiable use of force and whatnot. So similar thing, right? So again, like with the pseudo, what happened with Alex Murdaugh again was like, because of the fact that then they got the Snapchat video from Paul's phone because that took so long to get the phone unlocked. And that showed him at the kennels at the time of the murders, right? So then they ran, again, why I'm calling it a pseudo alibi defense, because it was not an affirmative alibi defense. It was like they were trying to sort of still suggest that he could have been there and then left, okay? So what they're referencing here when they say raising the alibi defense, they're talking about an affirmative alibi defense, okay? Where you do take on that burden. Mr. Kohberger's defense team continues investigating and preparing his case. Evidence corroborating Mr. Kohberger being at a location other than King Road address will be disclosed pursuant to discovery and evidentiary rules as well as statutory requirements. It is anticipated this evidence may be offered by way of cross-examination of witnesses produced by the state as well as calling expert witnesses. And right here, what does that read like? You know, cross-examining the cell phone data and bringing in Syrie. That's how I read that. And right there, I feel like they're conceding it's not an affirmative alibi defense, right? That's not an affirmative alibi defense. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next document that was referenced here. And this is from August the 2nd of 2023. Objection to the state's motion to compel motive of defense of alibi or alternatively to bar certain evidence. Okay, Idaho codes require an alibi disclosure of a specific location with a specific location and witnesses to testify. By statutory definition, Mr. Kohberger may remain silent yet testify that he was not at 1122 King Road on November 13, 2022. However, in an abundance of caution, recognizing the court has an authority to exclude witnesses, Mr. Kohberger has indicated he anticipates corroborating witnesses. Okay, Mr. Kohberger has long had a habit of going for drives alone. Often he would go for drives at night. He did so late on November 12th and into November 13th, 2022. Mr. Kohberger is not claiming to be at a specific location at a specific time. At this time, there's not a specific witness to say precisely where he was at each moment of the hours between late night of November 12th and early morning of November 13th. He was out driving around during late night and early morning hours. I mean, you can see right here, again, it's even like they're conceding does not meet the standard for an alibi defense. You know, again, in the affirmative way, this is like that pseudo alibi defense again, which isn't the worst thing, because by doing that, you're not taking on that burden that you would otherwise take on. So right. So, but remember, great point that about the park, right? The thing is that again, according to the rule, right, he has to be able to have a corroborating witness, right? And claim that either he would have to testify and claim to be at a specific location at a specific time, or there would have to be like a corroborating witness to put him at a specific location at a specific time. And they are conceding here, not claiming to be at a specific location at a specific time. And the park, I don't think is even mentioned in here. Well, I think that came out in one of the hearings. Let's keep reading. So he was out driving during the late night and early morning hours. Counsel for Mr. Kohberger is aware that case law broadens the definition of alibi with the statutory requirement of a specific location to more broadly include, here we go, disclosure of information that tends to state the person claiming alibi was at a place other than the location of an offense. There we go. Mr. Kohberger has complied to the extent possible at this time. There we go. That answers the question. So the more broad location, that would be the park. But again, I think it would still be that if he wants to run in that affirmative defense, he would have to either testify to that or have a corroborating witness that would be able to put him there, right? Corroboration, okay. Corroboration of Mr. Bryan Kohberger not being at 112 King may be brought up through cross-examination of the state's witnesses. Again, yes, it can. That's not an affirmative alibi defense, though. At this time, Mr. Kohberger cannot be more specific. Well, okay, let me just reiterate. You could run, if you run an affirmative alibi defense, you would still bring this out on cross. But what my point is, that alone is not enough. That would be like your pseudo, right? Pseudo alibi defense, as I'm calling. At this time, Mr. Kohberger cannot be specific about the possible witnesses and exactly what they will say. The defense has been hampered by the state's own choices. The state chose a secret grand jury rather than the planned preliminary hearing. Had the state moved forward with the preliminary hearing, the defense would have had the opportunity to develop testimony through cross-examination and witness presentation. Instead, the defense has only received a copy of the testimony the state chose to elicit. Review of such is underway. The defense had to obtain investigative materials from the state's investigative counterparts, the FBI, through an order compelling the state to provide such materials. The state made draft disclosures just 2 weeks ago. The sufficiency of these disclosures is currently being analyzed. Corroboration of Bryan Kohberger not being at 112 King may be brought out through eyewitness presentation. That analysis is underway. So that would be DM, I guess. The defense has been diligently working to analyze relevant discovery materials. And again, like I said, remember, I was like, man, I forgot how early this was in the case, right? This was in 2023. Notably, the defense had to obtain a court order to receive relevant discovery materials. That delay hampers the defense investigation. The defense acknowledges a vast amount of discovery has been provided. Discovery is received on a nearly weekly basis. The defense reviews and acts on the discovery as quickly as possible, including making appropriate supplemental requests for discovery. The state's motion is an attempt to force the defense to open its work product files and let the state peek inside. The defense has stated all that can be firmly be stated at this time. This is not trial by ambush from the defense. This is the defense requesting information. Then they mentioned the speedy trial. Mr. Kohberger was driving alone. Corroborating evidence may come from cross-examination of the state's witnesses. Corroborating evidence may come from presentation of defense experts. Mr. Kohberger is aware of and will comply with his. And again, that doesn't meet the standard because they need, even if they go with that more broad definition of a broader place, they still need something to corroborate that, be it his own testimony from the stand or an eyewitness or corroborating like eyewitness, right? Right. Correct. Stevie's correct. He said he was at the park for admissible alibi. Yep. I think you might have actually said that and I'm just seeing it now, but that's what I was literally just saying, that you need something to corroborate it. So an expert witness wouldn't count. It needs to be like an corroborating like eyewitness, right? Or again, if he chose to take the stand, he could say it. Right? For real. What is this about here, Twiz? 12. I don't know anything about a cat. Maybe this is like a suggestion as to what he could say happened. I don't know anything about any cat. They have the phone data. They have that. I just don't know what you're referencing. Did I say something about 12? Twiz? Or to somebody else. So yeah, they have the phone data. They have that. In fact, even in the exhibit list that we read after those hearings, they reference even the Celebrate report, which was the first time we saw that in writing in this case. And I was like, yay. Oh, right. And they didn't then. Correct. Right. They didn't have it all then. Correct. So, okay, this is a good question here. So, Shannon's saying phone data isn't admissible as corroborating witness for alibi, but is admissible for prosecution. That's weird. So here's the thing, because we have to remember how it's going to go with this phone data. Okay. Is that from everything we know, we don't know everything. From what we know and what we've heard come up, and the big deal with the cell towers, right? We already know, right? This already come out a million times. So there's that gap in time. That's the thing. There's a gap in time. There's that window of time where there's no data. Okay. So the thing is that if that didn't exist, if there had been no gap in data, let's just say, just for anybody doing anything in their, you know what I mean? Like, let's just say that you're out grocery shopping. Okay. You're using your phone, or you're not using your phone, but your phone is on. Okay. You're out grocery shopping. And then let's just say that, like, you get charged with a crime in the next city over. Right. And then they look at your phone data and they can see that at that exact time of the homicide, you were at the grocery store in the town where you live. Then they'd be like, we exclude you as a suspect, right? You wouldn't, that wouldn't. So the problem is this gap in time where, because of the gap, they can't definitively prove where he was, right? Or where the phone was, because the phone doesn't have to be with the person, right? They can't put the phone at the house, and they can't put the phone not at the house during that gap in time. It's going to be about the surrounding time. And that's why we've discussed this at length. And I know you just subscribed. We've been really delving into this super, super fucking deep with the timeline and with the phone. And actually, I've put together a lot of presentations. Definitely check those out. I have a whole playlist for this case and all the other cases, but with the phone, with the maps, I've done a lot with the maps. Twiz can tell you as well, and anybody else who's been here. But yeah, we've broken this down a whole lot with the circumstances around the phone. And so it's going to come down to the experts. And that's why, like, when it came up in those hearings on the 23rd, that's why, like, where the car was and the direction it was pointing, right before that window is so important, because the defense has the one theory and the state has a different theory. And we've talked about that at length as well. And it's going to be about looking at the data just before the phone went away and then after it came back. That's what it's going to be about. And other than that, the only other thing the state has in terms of trying to put the defendant there, apart from the DNA, is the car, right? So when you look at that information and you know that there's this gap in time, that type of thing is the exact thing that people will fight about at trial. When I say fight, I mean experts will go back and forth. That's what I fully expect to see that in this trial. And they even said as much in the hearings. Right. And again, we've talked about this at length. That data is not there. It is my interpretation, and from going through this extensively, that the phone was off. It could be that the battery died. It doesn't mean it was powered off, but the thing is that the thing is this, right? If the phone wasn't off, the phone would have to have had both location services toggled off and airplane mode on if the phone was not off, because otherwise somebody would be able to actually pinpoint his exact location during that time. As we've talked about at length, that location data updates frequently, even if you're out of range. Even if you're out of range from a cell tower, there's still going to be other location data that comes in. And we've talked about it at length. So, and even if it can't ping anything, you're going to see the attempts. And that's the key thing. If the phone is on, right, and it's just out of range, you're going to see attempts to connect. And When it's out of range, those happen even more frequently than when it's in range of a tower. If the phone is out of range, it's going to do it like we looked at a whole thing about it. It was like every 2 seconds. It's going to constantly try to find a tower because that's what it tries to do. You would see that on the Celebrate report. So in other words, again, if the phone was not powered off, the way that they don't have any location information for that cell phone during that gap time, if it wasn't powered off, the only other explanation is on airplane mode and with location services turned off. And the way they will know the difference is by looking at the Celebrate report, because even if the phone is on, but with those toggled off, the phone will have other background processes happening in the background. It will be logging other things. We've talked about it at length. So that's the difference. If they look at the Celebrate report and there's just nothing for the 2 hours, it was the same thing as Zach Hughes' phone, and there's just nothing there, the phone's off. Yeah, everything shows up in the Celebrate. Unless, the only things that don't show up in a Celebrate report are when you switch things on and off. So for example, okay, if you manually power a phone on or off, that does not log as an event in Celebrate, but it can be figured out via context clues, as I've just discussed. If you put a phone on airplane mode or take it off airplane mode, that also will not log as an event in Celebrate. You would figure it out via context clues, again, like I just discussed. And then if location services are toggled on or off, in some instances that can show up on a Celebrate report, but it's not likely. And again, we've done so many presentations on all of this. So if you want more information, any of the thumbnails that you see or titles that you see where it says anything about the cell phone or like location or maps, those are all going to involve all these cell phone presentations that I've put together. Although if you guys want to rewatch one now, we can. I've got those videos saved. We can always pull that back up if you guys want to look at it. Yeah, I think the phone, my personal interpretation is that likely the phone was off. But at the very least, if it wasn't off, it was on airplane mode with location services turned off. Because even if it had location data off, but it did not have airplane mode on, you would see attempts to connect to cell towers if it was out of range. Right, faro scan. Thanks. That's correct. Faro scan. Too fast for Fleece says, when flying in a jet at 30,000 feet, I don't have cell service, but if I look at my maps, it shows me on the map. I'm just moving it. There you go. Perfect example. Thank you for that. Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's because you still have GPS location data. That's why. Stevie B, are you referencing this comment from Twiz? I'm trying to remember. I know this has come up before. I'm trying to remember where that came from about him assuming that. I'm trying to remember. That was a statement made by somebody. Was that his attorney? Is that who that was? Not Ann Taylor, but his previous counsel. Right. And the thing is, we looked into this on one of the live streams, and I was like, can you actually buy a Faraday bag? You can actually buy a Faraday bag, but the odds of somebody doing that are just so slim to none. Why would you do that when you can just turn it off? You know what I mean? I think that the powered off. Again, here's the other thing. If it could be also, remember guys, it could be also that the battery died. Now there is a difference there. If the phone is off because the battery dies, that will log as an event. So you will see, and we've seen this, we've talked about this at length with the awesome the Murdoch timeline that we've looked at, where it shows Paul's battery status. So the phone will always log the battery status of a phone. So if the phone dies because the battery dies, that will log as an event and Celebrate. It'll show that the battery was at 1% and then 0 or whatever, right? But if it's manually powered off, that will not log as an event. It will be figured out via all the other context clues, as we've talked about. Right. Thank you. That's right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. So this attorney said that Bryan said that to him. I don't know. The thing is that, like, so my take on that is that so what was the statement exactly? That BK asked the attorney if they had the GPS. What was it? Does anyone remember verbatim what the statement was from the attorney? Like, did law enforcement have my GPS or what was it? And the other thing to keep in mind, right, is like a lot of people, including, I'm sure, attorneys, and I'm not blaming anybody for this, but like, you know, remember, this dude was just there to do that one thing, right? This wasn't like a sought out, supposed to be the best. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be surprising. Like, in other words, what am I saying? It's really easy for people to get things confused and to not know that there's a difference, like that there's location data, there's different types of location data. GPS is one thing, it's different from other things, you know, and to kind of use these different words sort of synonymously when they actually mean different things. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Welcome back, Steve W. Yeah, if the phone continues to roam, the battery will die, so you have to turn it off to save battery. So if you need it, you still have it to use. Yeah. Now, again, the battery status would show up on the Celebrate report, right? And you would be able to see too. Actually, that's a good point. Let's think about it this way, right? That's a good point. So okay, let's think of it that way. So if the phone was roaming, right? And I feel like this never happens to me, so I forgot about this. If the phone was roaming and the battery was dying quicker, A, that would show up on the Celebrate report, but B, that could be an indication that the phone was roaming, right? Think of it that way. Like if they look at the Celebrate report and they look at the battery status and then they look at the the cell data, even just like on a normal day prior to the homicides, right? And then they look at like, here's what it's like on a normal day, right? And then if the Celebrate report showed during that window, it's the battery is like draining really quickly, unusually quickly, that could be something that could support that the phone was out of network, right? Or away from cell towers and roaming, right? And it could also indicate, oh, well then, yeah, like you said, turning off to save the battery. So that is something. The battery status will show up in the Celebrate report. And Steve W joins us from North Dakota. If I remember, it's North Dakota, right? Shout out to North Dakota. I feel like that's correct. Is that North Dakota or South Dakota? Let me know. God damn it, which Dakota is it? One of the Dakotas, I think. I don't know where Heather is. Can I help you with anything? South. Yay! So I remembered it correctly the first. Wait, did I say South or North first? Whatever it was, I had it and then I second guessed myself. South. Okay, cool. Because I remember thinking you were in the same state as Meg. So shout out to South Dakota. Cool. Neato. And Too Fast, I think, had a command. Let's make sure we're getting everybody's commands. Steve W, would you also like a command as well? Custom command. So if the battery was being drained, that would show up in the Celebrate report. So that was a really good point, Steve. Thank you for that. Yeah, we've talked about Faraday bags. I'm sure Twiz knows what that is. We've talked about Faraday bags a lot. And actually, some of you guys were probably there when we pulled up Faraday bags. I think it was actually during a Casey Anthony stream, and looking them up, and I was like, oh, you can actually purchase those. They're expensive, and I don't find it unlikely a normal person would have one. But yeah, the Faraday bag. Now, when law enforcement takes a phone, okay, they do a number of things. They put it on airplane mode. They take out the SIM card. They turn all the shit off. They take it off. They put it on airplane mode. They turn location service off. They take out the SIM card. They power it off, and they put it in a Faraday bag. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there must be some big keys though, right? If it can fit a phone in it. Right. Yeah, the Faraday bag prevents things from being hacked. Yes. In other words, so the thing is, the other steps prior to the Faraday bag, that keeps the phone from overwriting data on the phone. So in other words, the first steps that I mentioned preserve the state of the phone in the state that it's in. So again, the airplane mode on, location services off, taking out SIM card, powering it down, all that will preserve the phone in the state it was in when it was collected. The Faraday bag then keeps other people from being able to like access the phone and fuck with it remotely. So, okay. But yeah, the roaming thing is interesting. And we will see again, if the battery was being drained, we will see that on the Celebrate report, if that's the case. So, okay, Mr. Kohberger is aware and okay, I think we read that. The court may exempt Mr. Kohberger from further inquiry. Okay, yeah, that's basically we were finished with that. Okay, so now we are going to go back to the motion to eliminate here. So we were just reviewing these documents referenced here because the state's going to refer to them. Okay. And they're referring to all these other things, which are different hearings and okay, no, we have two more to pull up. We need to pull these up. So April 17th and April 26th, 2024. Okay. And then April 26th. Okay, so we have the notice of defendant supplemental response to state's alibi demand. So this is like a year later from the ones we were just reading. Okay, Mr. Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington in June of 2022. Now, I wonder if this is where they get to the park. As an avid runner and hiker, he explored many areas of the Palouse. Am I saying that correctly? Of note, there it is. I'm going to butcher this. I'm just going to call it the park. Of note, he explored the park. In July of 2022, this became a favorite location. After the school year began, Mr. Kohberger was busy with classes and work at Washington State University, and his running and hiking decreased but did not stop. Instead, his nighttime drives increases. This is supported by data from his phone, showing him in the countryside late at night or in the early morning on several occasions. The phone data includes numerous photographs taken on several different late evenings and early mornings, including in November, depicting the night sky. Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours, as he often did, to hike or run and see the moon and stars. He drove throughout the area south of Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including the park. Partial corroboration. Palouse. Okay, so I said it correctly. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Is that it? Okay, so partial. Is that not it? That's what you typed. I got Palouse, I think, though. Partial corroboration. Mr. Kohberger intends to offer the testimony of CSLI expert. to show Bryan Kohberger's mobile device was south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho on November 13th, 2022, that Bryan Kohberger's mobile device did not travel east on the Moscow Pullman Highway in the early morning hours of November 13th, and thus could not be the vehicle captured on video near Floyd's cannabis shop. Additional information as to Mr. Kohberger's whereabouts in the early morning hours progressed, including additional analysis by Mr. Ray, will be provided once the state provides discovery requested and now subject to an upcoming motion to compel. If not disclosed, Mr. Ray's testimony will also if not disclosed, Mr. Ray's testimony will also reveal that critical exculpatory evidence further corroborating his alibi was not preserved or has been withheld. Denise says, "Oh my God." I don't know why she said, "Oh my God." Okay, so now we have the state's response to that notice of alibi. Okay, at the outset, the state incorporates by reference as a fully set forth at this point those portions of the state's, and then it's referencing those documents from earlier that we just read. The state respectfully submits that the defendant's supplemental alibi response continues to lack the specificity required, which provides the defendant shall state the specific place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense, and the names and addresses of the witnesses upon whom he tends to rely to establish such alibi. The defendant's submission minimally adds to the alibi notice. I mean, I agree. There was minimal added for sure. The defendant states that he was driving around during the early morning hours, drove throughout the area, South Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including the park. With the exception of the reference to the park, the defendant is offering nothing new to his initial alibi that he was simply driving around. As the state noted, the state is aware that the defendant was driving around rural areas of Whitman County, Washington, and Latah County, Idaho, during the morning hours. In fact, the defendant's travels during that time are described in the original PCA. As the defendant's reference to potential testimony about the location of defendant's cell phone on the morning of November 13th, this information does not rise to the level of an alibi. Here we go. And this is literally what I was saying, guys. This information does not rise to the level of an alibi at the time of the homicides because the defendant's cell phone stopped reporting to the network. This is the whole case right here in terms of like the thing, besides the DNA, right? Like what's going to be the deal with the phone? Because it stopped reporting. It's going to be for the experts to argue over again, like we said. And it's all this, right? It's like, what do they have in the Celebrate report? Is there nothing there? Or is there just phone trying to connect? Or what is the battery status? All that. I can't wait to learn that at trial. But the way that they talk about this phone, to me, it seems like it was off. Whether it died or whether it was turned off, I don't know. But it seems like it was off because there's just nothing. The location of defendant's cell phone at times other than the time of the homicides is not proof of or relevant to the defendant's specific location at the time of the homicides. It is the state's position that the defendant's continued failure to adequately comply with the does not trigger a response. If the court deems the defendant's supplemental response to be in compliance with the requirements of the Idaho Code, the state requests additional time pursuant to prepare a list of witnesses to establish the defendant's presence at the scene of the homicides. Well, wouldn't you be doing that anyway, though? Isn't that your job? Isn't that your job, though? And who else are you going to prepare? Like, we already know about DM. Jesus Christ. As to witnesses to rebut a claim of alibi, the defendant's failure to adequately comply with the code the state does not know what specific assertions it needs to rebut. If the court allows the defense to offer further witnesses or information regarding the alibi and bring it into compliance, the state will then respond accordingly pursuant to the code. It has now been approximately 11 months since the state filed its request for disclosure with the alibi, and almost a year and a half since the homicides. The defendant has been given more time than he's legally entitled to provide the alibi. I think let's see if there's anything else interesting in here. That's basically the gist of it. Yeah. So and again, like just to reiterate, if the phone was not powered off, likely it would be a situation where again, if it was roaming, right? If it was roaming, we would see in the Celebrate report, all those attempts to connect and also the battery status changing, right? Potentially. But if the Solibrary report does not show attempts to connect, and we know there's no location data, then the phone was, again, at the very least on airplane mode and with location services toggled off during that time. But again, if the phone is still powered on under those circumstances, it's going to show other background processes. Now, where does that get you? It gets you that the phone's on, but can things be learned from that? Yes, there can be. Look at Murdoch, right? Orientation changes, locking and unlocking. Now, is that going to prove where somebody is? No, but it can still be important. And it was in the Murdoch case, completely important, proved time of death with that shit. So, but it'll still show background processes happening during that time, even if you're not using it. It'll still be logging data, but just not location data, right? Okay. And it will still be logging battery state, as I've said, no matter what. So, okay, so now we are on to, we're back to, actually rather here. So we've just reviewed all these documents. So this is their motion in limine here. Okay, it has now been approximately 20 months since the state first made its request for discovery disclosure alibi demand. The defendant has failed to comply with these requirements. The defendant has yet to specify. So remember how we kept talking about the ship has sailed, and it was like nothing ever came of the alibi. We've talked about this recently. It's so funny. So now we're seeing basically where it still stands, which is nothing happened, right? Literally nothing happened with the alibi. It just fizzled out, and no one ever talked about it until now. Nobody in terms of the parties in the case, right? So the defendant has yet to specify. So those they're still waiting on it. Specify place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense, and the names and addresses or witnesses he tends to rely on to establish such alibi. And now it's referencing again all these documents we just read. Consequently, the defendant should be prohibited from presenting any evidence, whether by. So now what they're trying to do is say, even if it's just from direct or cross-examination. Interesting. In support of any claimed alibi other than from the defendant himself, they're trying to force him to testify. That's what this is. Because remember, before when it was discussed, it was fine, cross-examine, fine, bring in your expert, fine. That still doesn't count as an affirmative alibi defense, fine, right? But now what they're saying is they want to prohibit him from presenting any evidence, whether by direct or cross, apart from testimony from the defendant himself. That is very interesting. That's like trying to keep out Psychiatric, but also trying to keep them from cross-examining their cell phone witnesses, state cell phone witnesses. Interesting. Interesting. Even were the defendant to attempt to comply at this late point in time, the state is irrevocably prejudiced. It has now been over 2 years since the homicides occurred, and it would be unrealistic at this late date to expect the state to effectively investigate and respond to any new additional or alibi-related disclosures. This is precisely the situation that caused concern for the Idaho Court of Appeals in State v. Juarez, where the court noted with the ease with which an alibi can be fabricated and the state's interest in protecting itself against an 11th-hour defense is both obvious and legitimate. The adversary system of trial is hardly an end in itself. It is not yet a poker game in which players enjoy an absolute right always to conceal their cards until played. We find ample room in that system, at least as far as due process is concerned, which is designed to enhance the search for truth in criminal trial by ensuring both the defendant and the state ample opportunity to investigate certain facts crucial to the determination of guilt or innocence. That's interesting because you don't need to prove innocence. Anyway, for these reasons, the court should issue an order prohibiting the defendant from presenting any evidence, whether by direct or cross-examination, in support of any claimed alibi other than from the defendant himself. They're trying to force him into testifying. I don't think that's going to go very far. I would expect this to be denied. That's my personal opinion. Denise, do you have any thoughts? I would expect this to be denied. Because anything that is going to be presented, what's funny is this, right? They're like, we don't want any new evidence. If the defendant testifies, they can say, then you're going to get new evidence, right? However, in terms of just offering things by direct or cross, aka Psychiatric, aka cross-examining cell phone stuff, then none of that's new. That's not last minute 11th hour springing, right? And they should be expecting that anyway, right? That's what every single case is. So I would expect this to be denied. Okay, so now on to the next one. which is the alternative perpetrator evidence. Okay. So state's motion in limine, and look, they've got one here. A re-ray. I mean, I'm so crazy. So you think he's going to grant that motion in limine, Denise? About that one specifically? I mean, I would agree, but with that one specifically, where the long and short of it is, they're like, yeah, you can't present anything through direct or cross-examination that could hint at an alibi. That's literally that's the SIRE. That's like cross-examining the phone people, right? And they're trying to say it has to come from the defendant himself. I just don't think that that's going to go very far. That I would expect that to be denied, even if he grants the rest of them. Right. That's funny. So this is, so the state's motion to eliminate perpetrator evidence. An order prohibiting the defendant from offering an alternative perpetrator evidence or argument without first satisfying the court that such evidence is relevant and admissible pursuant to Idaho Rules of Evidence 401, 402, 403. In support of this motion, the state refers the court and counsel to State v. Meister, where the Idaho Supreme Court addressed the standard for assessing admissibility of alternative perpetrator evidence. The proper analysis is under Idaho Rules of Evidence 401, 402, and 403. Citing to State v. Self, the Idaho. Oh, okay, gotcha. Denise was saying that she thinks he'll grant all the motion limines in the defense's favor. Okay, right. Okay, yeah, I think I would agree. I would agree with that. Okay, so then so you're saying that would be true for the Al. Yeah, right, got it. Cool. Okay, I misinterpreted what you were saying. So the Idaho Supreme Court noted that the trial court must first consider and determine whether the proffered evidence is relevant under Idaho Rules of Evidence 401. Second step is to determine the probative value of the proffered evidence is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion, or issues. We've talked about this a ton, cumulative, etc. Noting the Larson court was concerned that a defendant will attempt to admit evidence where the sole purpose is to infer that an individual other than the accused is committed the crime, the Idaho Supreme Court stated, if the defendant proffers evidence which merely tends to mislead the jury that another person committed the crime, or the evidence is not relevant because it does not tend to make the defendant's more involvement more probable or less probable, then it is within the trial court's discretion to find the evidence inadmissible. Mere inferences that another person could have committed the crime will most likely not be relevant, and if relevant, will still be subjected to the limitation provisions of Idaho Rules of Evidence 403. In this case, during the course of the investigation, literally thousands of tips regarding possible perpetrators were received by law enforcement. Interesting. So who else here, when you read this title, thought it's going to be about the other DNA at the crime scene? Unknown male, B and D. That's what I was thinking. That's not what they're talking about, the tips of possible perpetrators. With the exception of information regarding the defendant, none of these tips were substantiated. So they're saying if the defense wants to bring up these other people that people called up and said, maybe it's this dude. Wow. That's funny, Twiz. I'm not sure what you're referencing here, Denise, with the rebuttal impeachment. So, okay. So, so the tips, with the exception of information regarding the defendant, none of the tips were substantiated. The state submits, and it's really funny because here I think the tip they're referencing has to be the IG, right? In terms of the defendant. The state submits that any attempt by the defendant to offer or argue an alternative perpetrator theory without evidence specifically connecting the persons other than the defendant to the homicides would do nothing more than mislead and confuse the jury and would also result in undue delay, waste of time, and would be a needless presentation of cumulative evidence and unfairly prejudice the state. Under the Idaho State Supreme Court's ruling in Meister, this should be prohibited. Oh, by the way, guys, well, let me finish this and then I'll say the state respectfully submits that he should be precluded. Okay, fine. Okay. So that's just all right. Here's what I was gonna say. I saw just a snippet of Lawyer Lee talking about the IGG hearing transcript, and her videos are really short, so she just kind of summarizes. But one thing I thought was really funny, because any of you guys who were there when I read that transcript, I went through and went back to the PCA, and I was like saying how, hang on, is it possible that like unknown male E is Bryan and the other male with the mixture is the dad? And I was also like, hang on, like, does this mean potentially it was like the dad's DNA on the sheath, right? And like everything is the other way around. And then I made a joke about Bryan Kohberger being like both his dad and himself, and I forget what else. I made some joke about it, but like there's a way that could have been the case given the wording and given reading it, like that could be the case. And then I think some of you guys were like, I think the wording is just bad or whatever. And I was like, okay. But it's really funny because the one part that I heard from Lawyer Lee for like 2 seconds, she was saying literally the exact same thing. And I was like, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me, which is funny. Okay, so now we're on to the next one. And this is the neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence. Okay, so the state removes the court from order in limine prohibiting the defendant from offering testimony regarding neuropsychological evaluation and psychiatric evaluation of the defendant as summarized in the supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert witnesses. Specifically, the state objects to the proposed testimony of expert witnesses identified in the exhibits appended, and of course, we can't see those. In support of this motion, the state respectfully refers the court to Idaho Code 18-207, which provides that mental condition shall not be a defense for any charge of criminal conduct, except expert evidence on those issues of any state of mind, which is an element of the offense. In each of the witness summaries, the defendant specifically states the testimony is not intended for a mental element defense pursuant to Idaho Code, but rather is testimony about state of mind, as well as factual defense testimony to anticipate a testimony elicited by the state. As such, this proposed testimony falls outside of the mental condition evidence allowable under Idaho Code. So that's interesting. What do you guys make of this? So are you thinking, like, what is this? Because when we were talking about this last night, when we didn't know what it was going to contain, but we just saw this on the summary, it was like, we were thinking maybe like for mitigation, right? That's not what this sounds like, though. That's not what this sounds like. And they're not mentioning it in relation to the penalty phase, right? Or the mitigation phase. So I'm wondering if what it is maybe is like they had someone assess and it's like a healthy state of mind. I don't know. Like trying to present like this is somebody who is not a psychopath, right? And actually kind of makes sense because look at this, right? It's defense testimony to anticipated testimony elicited by the state. So if we imagine what is the state going to elicit, right? So it's like to rebut that. And it's funny because we were talking about this last night as well, how you could have people try to come in and say, yeah, this person's not a psychopath. They're not a sociopath. But then when it comes to mitigation, typically people can try to use that as an actual mitigation, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. How do we know this? Where did this come from? I've not heard that. I don't know where that came from. If that's true. Where did that come from? I don't know how being on the spectrum though would rebut testimony elicited by the state. Right? Again, if what this is expecting the state to say, thinking back to like the Reddit posts and all that shit. I mean, we don't know but again, trying to portray, and what gives us insight to this, right, is the ones that were listed we haven't been able to read yet, but the ones that we know are from the defense, right? Like they're going to use the word murder, they're going to use these words. What did they say? It says sociopath and psychopath, right? Like, look, using the term psychopath or sociopath. Oh, we didn't even finish reading those. Okay. So right there, though, if this is like, the testimony is not intended to be a mental element defense pursuant to the code, but rather testimony is about state of mind as well as factual defense testimony to anticipated testimony listed by the state. So that's why I was thinking, is it going to try to be rebutting that? I don't think that autism that's not, I don't know that that would have relevance in this case. Like, remember the whole, like, evidence first has to be relevant. I don't see the autism coming in at all, period. I don't see it coming in at all. And maybe maybe in the sentence, I don't know. I just don't see it being relevant for anything here, personally. Did these just load? I'm so confused. Look at page 74 of what? Oh, because I didn't finish reading them. That's why I literally just said that. That's really funny. So Stevie B, the ones that have come, so there's the case summary, right? Not all of these have posted yet, right? So as far as the case summary is concerned, the ones that have posted are the ones we've covered tonight, the ones that are open, the ones we can read. And that's the state's motion in limine for the alternative perpetrator, the neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence, the alibi, and the demonstrative exhibits. Okay. The rest of these motions in limine are listed, but they haven't come up yet for us to read. Now, I thought I'd gone through them all, but I haven't. So let's do that now. So we were looking at these and then we got sidetracked. So I think probably because of the timing advance. Okay. So I remember we saw this one. So the motion in limine, Ray, witness identification by bushy eyebrows, unnoticed 404B evidence, and then the motion in limine, Ray, excluding Amazon click activity evidence at trial, and then improper expert testimony middleman, IgG, make and model vehicle, conditions as aggravator. Now that would be for the penalty phase. Stipulated motion to file defense exhibits in support of their motions in limine under seal. So that's the exhibits, but not the actual motions. And page 74, you said there, Denise. Different page 74. I'm on page 74 of this. I still don't see anything about autism. Oh, there it is, page 73. Huh? They're filing more motions challenging the death penalty? Oh my God. Wow. Okay, hang on. So there's more. Hold on. Okay. So that's funny because I saw this and I was like, oh, that's going to be aggravator. Okay. So, or that's going to be the mitigation or penalty phase, depending on how you want to call it. Okay. So then we have, again, to look forward to here. Wow. There's some more motions to redact or seal newly filed records. Motions in limine number 5 and 14. Hold on. What are those ones? Wow. Interesting. Number 5 is Riley Nolan and the touch DNA. Or sorry. No. We don't know what 5 and 16 are. They're not listed. What the fuck? 5 and 14. I guess that's what they are here. So motion to file those under seal. And then, wow, motion for leave to file additional motions challenging the death penalty. Ah, okay. Motion to exceed page limit. Motion to preclude the death penalty and adopt necessary measures due to the state's numerous disclosure violations. Motion is, oh my God, I've covered every single death penalty motion in this case. We'll cover, I'm shocked. I'm like, whoa, holy shit. You guys weren't, I did not see this. Oh my God. Okay. So they want to bring up this would be to strike the death penalty because of autism. That is fascinating to me. Wow. Now that though is different from what we were looking at earlier though. The document we were reading before, that still sounds like that's maybe something in trial. Wow. Yeah, I'm just catching up on comments here. Okay. So welcome back, DB. Yeah. So again, let's just regroup. Let's just regroup. So hang on. And remember, there's that document that hasn't come out yet that has been unsealed. That's about the family's medical history or psychological history. Let's take a look. Now that that's there, let me take another look at this. Okay. So this is the state. So motion to eliminate, prohibiting the defendant from offering testimony regarding neuropsychological evaluation and psychiatric evaluation of the defendant as summarized in the January 23rd supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert witnesses. Let's see if we can read anything about this document because we might get some insight as to what they're talking about here. January 23rd. Okay. So, wow. Autism. Wow. Okay. Comes now. Bryan, this is a defense motion. No objection from the Lake Tahoe County prosecutors to seal the exhibits, and literally gives us no information. Like, I figured at the very least it might give us some idea. Are they talking about during the, the first phase or the second phase of the trial? Right? It does not say. Wow. Okay. So. The thing is, does anybody remember when their deadline was for the defense deadline was for the mitigation phase expert witnesses? Why would someone just know that off the top of their head? Someone might. I feel like that deadline's not up yet. Hang on. Actually, it's probably on the case summary. Let me see here. No, maybe not. Okay. I feel like the thing is this. I feel like they have more, like they're not, that deadline's not here yet. So that's why it matters though, because these specific expert witnesses that are being referenced here, I'm wondering which phase of the trial they're in, because that's going to change things. So, right. So in each of the witnesses listed, the defendant specifically states the testimony is not intended to be a mental defense pursuant to the Idaho Code, but rather the testimony is about state of mind as well as factual defense testimony to anticipated testimony elicited by the state. Interesting. And the thing is right, like, again, if he denies this motion in limine, then we'll get to find out what it is at trial. Wow. Okay. I mean, it would be really interesting if autism comes into the guilt phase of the trial, right? Incredible. So DB, are you thinking that the state wants to bring in that he's autistic? Because other people were thinking that the state doesn't want that coming in because like this is the state's motion in limine right here. Not wanting, but we don't know what they're referencing. It could be the autism or it might be something else. We don't know. That's why this is wild. Wow. And this goes again, I just want to reiterate how this goes right in line with what Jay Logsdon said in one of those death penalty motions where he was just talking about how interesting it is that, again, like, even if you just go with like an NGI, which I know they don't have in Idaho, but like, even if you go with someone being a psychopath or being like calling someone a psychopath or a sociopath, or even if they test and they get tested for that and that's like affirmed, it's been used as simultaneously, right, as both not guilty, like not in Idaho but in other states, right, like an affirmative defense, but also as a mitigation, and also but then also can be used to be like, oh, well, then they definitely did it, right? Propensity, right? But like simultaneously uses like propensity and mitigation, right? And that's what's so wild about it, because it's like, you can see how that we're seeing this play out firsthand as we're like, wait, what? Does the autism mean they like what? Like what DB is saying, right? To try to make him look detached in some way or weird. But then, yeah, it's wild. Now that could be like OCD, the wearing gloves. I will tell you, there would be OCD people out there that might say they wear gloves all day, every day, for real, and sort trash. That sounds like an OCD thing to me, if that even happened. Okay. Yeah, I thought DB was saying that they were going to try, the state was going to try to bring it in to make him look weird or detached in some way. But maybe he was referencing something else. Gotcha. Okay. So he's clarifying. Right. I think the defense has an autism expert to explain some of the boogeyman stuff they're going to try to do. Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, we don't know yet. If they could also have someone who came in and diagnosed him with OCD, even better, right? If the thing is true with all the, gloves and the trash and whatever, or anything, right? Even things like, think about like the vacuuming at odd hours. Again, I don't, I feel like that's just rumor, right? Like that's not been, but anything that, like, I will just say, like, if like an OCD person totally could be vacuuming at odd hours, right? Anybody could really, but in terms of stuff that I could like, okay, some people with OCD, there's different types, right? But some people, it's like related mostly to like germs or cleaning, right? Some people, it's like they might stand and do the light switch on and off and count it. Stuff, there's all kinds. But if you think about stuff that could someone look like, or make it look like somebody maybe is cleaning up after a homicide, that totally could fit into somebody with OCD that fits into that, like, the gloves and the cleaning all the time. That's a thing. I've known people like that, And the other thing is, some people with OCD, they'll wash their hands so often, and by often I mean just constantly, that their hands are raw, and they might even wear gloves as a means to stop themselves from washing their hands more. So and I'll actually say this much, for me anyway, I have a box of nitrile gloves, black nitrile gloves over there, which I use for all kinds of things. Initially, I bought them because, like, I like to do my own blonding, which is like bleaching your hair. It's like a whole thing. Like, people will go and pay a lot of money. Anyway, I learned how to do that, taught myself how to do it during COVID. One of the hardest things I've ever done. And for numerous reasons. But anyway, so I have, like, basically all of professional hair salon stuff in my house. But the gloves were for that, because you want to wear those gloves so you don't get, like, lightener on your hands. But anyway, but I use them for other things. And sometimes what I would do is, like, in the winter when it's really dry, I get dry skin. And so sometimes, like, I would just wear those gloves if I'm going to be doing things that are, like, rough on my hands. So for example, like when I was raking my leaves and stuff, it helped me not get blisters. So anyway, I don't know, just there's lots of things you can use them for, but just yeah. Yep. So that's funny, Twiz. The whole thing about the killer carrying a vacuum, I just chalked that up to DM being drunk. I mean, the number of times where she tells them she's drunk. I'm still working on timestamps for the one from last night, but where I was at with the timestamps was literally those statements, and it's, like, insane. And the thing is, where you have to be careful, right, is like, well, how was I going to say this? Like, what will be tricky, right, is, let's just say that the defense presents some evidence at trial during the guilt phase, right, that is, like, intended to show he couldn't have done it because he doesn't have the personality. Like, okay, let me put it this way. Like autism, right? It's like he couldn't have done it because he doesn't have the personality, or the reason he was with the gloves and the vacuuming, whatever, right? Chalk it up to the autism or whatever, OCD, whatever the case may be. We see this all the time. It's like, and then if they get convicted and it's definitely case, and then you've got, like, then you move on to the sentencing phase, guilt phase, or sorry, no, sentencing phase, or Ann Taylor calls it the mitigation phase. Then, I mean, I guess in this case it would still work, right? Where they could still use that same testimony or same expert opinions to use for mitigation, like, but do you see where it's interesting? I don't know. Yeah. So testimony is not intended to be a mental element defense pursuant to the code, but rather this testimony is about state of mind, as well as factual defense testimony to anticipated testimony related, or testimony elicited by the state. Wow. So we've got a motion here to exceed page limit. I believe this is going to be the defense. Yep. To exceed the 10-page limit for the motion in limine, right, improperly disclosed expert testimony. Also Riley Nolan in reference to touch and contact DNA. And then also witness identification by brushy eyebrows and conditions as aggravator. Motion to extend the 10. He'll grant that because, we heard that early on. He was like, as long as you just ask, like, it'll be fine. And then, and there it is. There's the order. Excellent. Well, it says, may not exceed 20 pages. Okay. Okay. So they can go past 10, but they can't exceed 20. There you go. So, so that's the last one that's come out, guys. It's the last one. Yeah, support vacuum. I think what I will do is this, because that's all the documents we have now. Now we can see there's going to be a slew of new documents probably coming out tomorrow. What I might do is this, since we are pretty much finished up here, what I might do is this. I might go ahead and do the Karen Reed hearing right after this. Initially, I was going to do that tomorrow, but I think I might do that, and we could do that now. And then that way, if there's a lot of these filings that come out tomorrow, we can cover those. And we're also going to want to go through Donna's bond hearing, which will be great. We can all laugh. That's a good one we can laugh at, This is very interesting. And you can see now why the defense wanted those psychological records and stuff of the family or whatever it was, the stuff that's going to become unsealed. If it found, right, that there was some tendency there for autism spectrum disorder or OCD, you could see why they would want that. Interesting. That's really funny. You guys are so funny with the vacuum. I guess I still do also have to finish the going through this for the Frank stuff too. But I don't have a stream set up for that. So yeah, I'll probably just go ahead and switch it over to Karen Reed. Possibly. So, okay, so let's do that. Let me update. Hang on, let me switch that up here on the schedule. Okay, we'll just do it. We'll do it like that. We'll do it that way. Okay. So because I didn't have it set up ahead of time, I can't redirect you guys, but you'll see it here. I just changed the time. Let me make sure it's public. Hold on. Yeah, it is. Okay. So you guys should be able to see it. So we'll do that. So I'll go ahead and get that. I'll just go ahead and end this one and feed Frodo, and then we will have that one starting in like 8 minutes. So we'll do that. And that way that will free me up to be available to cover any of these other BK documents tomorrow, which I'm assuming there will be. Looks like there's going to be quite a few. So, okay, so we'll do that. So I'll see you guys here in just a minute. Love y'all as always, and I'll see you guys here soon.